Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Bennett, your spiritual counselor and psychic host for Metaphysically Speaking. The number to call tonight is 844-390-8255. That's 844-390-8255. And if you have any personal questions, like should you date this person or take a new job or kiss your cat more often, fine. But you ask that question, lots of questions. The number to call for an appointment for me is 727-804-4536. That's 727-804-4536. Don't call now. Call after the show or anytime, and someone will get back to you about scheduling an appointment through Zoom. We don't see anybody through person anymore until this horrible pandemic nightmare is over. But here's a little sobering fact. I don't think it's ever going to be over. I think there's going to be continuation of it, and I feel like there's going to be 2 or 3 other things that take its place, like a plague kind of thing. Sadly, we lost Meatloaf, who you think, we're just talking about Meatloaf. He was the performer from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. His best album is Bat Out of Hell. If you don't have it, go get it. He had the operatic voice and he did rock. And I think one of the most famous songs is I Do Anything for Love, but Not for That. But I won't do that. Sadly, he died from COVID. And sadly, he was also anti-COVID vaccine. So that is a direct cause and effect. And it's unfortunate because he had a wonderful voice. He wasn't performing much recently, but it's too bad that he didn't get the opportunity to see the stupidity of not following the science. So you can do what you want, but the problem is every time you do what you want, like that moron football player, Aaron something or other, you are exposing other people to whatever germs you happen to be carrying. You could be a carrier and not even know it and have no symptoms whatsoever and yet be a live petri dish. And every child you come near, even cats have come down with COVID. So no dogs that are reported. So if you have a cat and you're sick, have somebody else take care of your kitty. Leave it in the house, but don't be smush face kissing it. Stay away from the cat as much as possible and understand that you are carrying germs and you are contaminating others. There are people, for instance, who've just had surgery, who are on chemotherapy and 5 and under, who can't get the vaccine. So you're contaminating them. And as far as I'm concerned, hooray to Australia for throwing that tennis player out. I'm tired of these egomaniacs who think they have the right to pursue their dreams while they're killing other people. That is part of the evil we are talking about tonight. So again, to call the show, 844-390-8255. And my producer, my super producer, Cameron, will be answering the phone and addressing your question to me. Okay, also we are on live every second Tuesday and every fourth Tuesday, which for tonight, this is the 4th, January 25th, 2022. And so how many of you remember what I've talked about before? I haven't given a class on numerology, but I've certainly mentioned it enough. How many of you remember information about double-digit numbers? Like 22. You never incorporate them with the rest of the numerology. You circle them and you will have 2 numbers for your numerology question, whether it's a name, whether it's an important date you want to select, whatever it is. 11s and 22s are my numbers. And I got to tell you, it ain't easy. So when you have 11s or 22s, rarely do you find a 33. You will discover that you have karma that is much more intense over and over and over again until it beats it into you, the lesson, and things are more difficult. Everybody has problems. No question about it. Some people are more fortunate than others, and that's not because they're lucky or they found a shamrock. Heck, with all the four-leaf clovers that I found as a kid, I should have a life that's a breeze, wealthy, living in the plane, living on a plane, traveling from continent to continent in my fabulous homes. Not the case. So it's karma that you and your guardian angel chose when you were in the astral world, discovering where you were going to go in your next lifetime, who you were going to select for parents, what was going to be your major role. And so therefore, you don't have anybody else to blame except yourself. When you're in the astral world and you're planning out your next lifetime, well, actually you plan out the next lifetime and then the following 2 lifetimes after that. You're so positive. You're so hopeful. You're so excited about getting the opportunity to come back and finish off your lessons so that you can leave a physical planet and move to the astral level. You think you can just do anything. Here's a reality check. None of us can do everything. So I just caution you to remember that when you cross over. Be optimistic, but also listen to your guardian angel and be realistic. So, evil. What's the difference between evil and bad? I recommended that show Lucifer last time we were on. And I am now on I'm on the 3rd season, I think. And I will tell you that the first season had a lot of good information in it. A lot of fairy tale stuff, a lot of writers from Hollywood trying to make an interesting story, which they have done. But I will straighten out some of the misperceptions because the 2nd year and the 3rd year are so far out of whack. Interesting story, but not true. Remember, angels cannot be fallen any more than you can lift up your arms and go sailing out the window and fly to wherever you want. Why? It's not in your DNA. It's in a bird's DNA. It's in a moth or a butterfly or bugs, but it's not in your DNA. It's not in the DNA of angels to fall, to have fights with God. I mean, the concept is so bizarre. It's not even vaguely realistic. And the deal with Lucifer is that he got tired of watching over hell and making sure people got the appropriate punishment. That's not Lucifer. There are angels there. Lucifer is in charge of physical planets that have humans struggling with their karma. And that's why I call him the superintendent or the principal that you don't like in your school, because they set up lessons for you to overcome, not to trip and make you fall on your head, but to have you overcome the lessons that you're going to experience in life. And so therefore, it is their job to give you a little poke. Now, your guardian angels know this. They know everything. They know what was planned lifetimes ago. And so do you. But he's always whining. What I hate is whiners. My cat was whining before, and I said, stop whining. Mommy's upstairs. Stop whining. And so she looks, and then she looks dejected. Your animals, by the way, know your frame of mind. They know your health. If your cat or dog, especially dogs, are programmed for this, which is why they're the ones used to find drugs, to find bodies, to go on horrible sites of destruction like the Nightmare in Peru and find people. Their noses are far more intense than even a cat's, as far as we know. And they have physical bodies that can go in and find things. So if your dog is bumping you, like the dolphins in Miami years ago, I don't know if they're still doing it. I don't know anything about the program, but they were bumping people. And people would go to the doctor and say, oh, this is a bruise. And the doctor would say, it's more than a bruise. And they found so many cancers and so many growths in people just by bumping that spot, because they can see your entire body like an X-ray, like a CAT scan, like any kind of test they could develop, they can see you and they can see a problem, and they save so many lives. Well, dogs, for the most part, can do that as well. Maybe not as efficiently as a dolphin, because actually a dolphin has a higher spiritual content in its energy grid than dogs do. But dogs are more familiar with humans, but you'll find that humans, remember that woman they saved back in December? They surrounded her, and when they were coming in with the helicopter, they could see sharks from different directions, and the dolphins were circling this woman. And she had about another 5 minutes to go before she drowned. The idiot went for a midnight swim. Let me give you a hint, having grown up at the ocean. Don't go in the water with a midnight swim. Don't go in the water when the sun begins to fade, because you can't see clearly, but they can see you, and they really can't see you that well. And they think, oh, a big juicy dinner, yum. And they come in and they nab you. They're not looking for you. They're looking for something else to eat. That's why most people survive shark attacks, because they come in for the bite and leave. People understand that angels cannot fall. They cannot go out of God's graces. They don't look to make things even out. They look to bring justice and light. And that is what they do. Your guardian angels, the archangels, which are the next step up, and they have larger responsibilities. Your guardian angels watch out for you. Guardian angels also watch out for critters, for animals, pussycats, puppy dogs, tortoises. They watch out for groups of animals like butterflies. They watch out for groups of animals like monkeys in the jungle and in the rehab centers. They watch out for forests and nature areas and deserts. They watch out for planets. They all have different jobs, but one is not better than the other. It's just that their personality is suited to a particular thing. And it's not making you crazy. It's not neglecting you. They can't intercede in your life and do something for you. They can warn you. That's that little voice you hear, or that gut feeling you have. And if you get that gut feeling, stop and pay attention to it and say, what is this? It doesn't feel right, then don't do it. Or do it, whatever the feeling is. You will be able to ascertain what that is as time goes by, because you'll get better at listening. That is always your guardian angel, or a guardian angel that's been sent to you because, say, you're going into the medical field and you're going to need extra help, or that you're going to be working with children, or you're going to be working with animals, or you're going to be working with nature. They're making so many discoveries about science and about the earth and how things can be used better. And these specialty angels are helping. Now, what about when you say, well, I know a friend who was in a car accident, and for some miraculous reason, the car missed the other car. That is when your guardian angel sees what's happening. It is not your karma to be in this accident. And to the best of their ability and time, they have your car move, or they will move your car so that you will avoid the actual accident. That is your miracle. That is when they have to intercede, because not to intercede would change the whole situation and put you on a path that you don't belong on, and is going to keep you from taking care of the other things that you do need to take care of. So if you think about it, God is not stupid. This is God, female, male, God. Female, male, God. In the show of Lucifer, Lucifer's always whining about his father manipulating him. The further along you get in the show, you'll realize the guy's a whiner. And which again drives me stark raving berserk. I can deal with anybody in counseling who says, look, this is a problem. I don't know if it's originating from me or if it's originating from somebody else, but this is the problem. I don't want to hear whining. I don't want to hear what you've done your whole life to whine. Some people have gotten in that habit and it's really awful and nobody wants, it's my ears slam shut. Deal with things as they are, not what you're emotionally whining about. We can deal with the emotions separately, but what are the exact facts? Most of the time, when you deal with the exact facts, the emotions go, oh, okay. Then we deal with the emotions. Sometimes we have to deal with the emotions first. Somebody might be so upset that I have to calm them down. Of course, it's easier in person with one of my pussycats, climbing in their lap or crawling under their feet or something. And they get all comfortable and they think, oh, isn't that cute? And they forget how upset they were. Pussycats are great, so are puppy dogs. So if you're a therapist and you have a great pet, utilize that pet's abilities. My sweetie pie would always go greet someone she liked, even if she had never met them before. And she would run under my feet or under my table in the corner, the furthest place away that she could get from the person if she didn't trust him. Animals know, they see auras, they see intentions. So do your angels. And so does evil. If you drink, smoke, or do drugs, you're opening the door wide open. You're saying, come on in. No such thing. I'll take care of it. You can't take care of anything that's out of your league. Now, bad is when a kid picks up something and throws it. What do? You train the child not to throw things. Number one, it's bad behavior. Number two, you could hurt somebody else. What if it breaks and shatters? You have to train children like you train your pets, like you train your tomato vine. Three plants this past summer. One little tomato I got, one. And I woke up one morning and opened the drapes and there was bloody squirrel sitting in the pot, munching on the tomatoes. You can't train that. It's not evil. It's not bad. The squirrel is thinking, what nourishment she's provided for me. Now, if that was a neighbor coming over and sneaking around, that'd be a different story. That would be very bad. If they did it and said, ha, 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 you don't get your own tomatoes, that would be borderline evil. Or maybe it would be someone who already sank into evil. And like one of those leg hold traps that people still use to kill animals, it's like this thing and you walk into it, it snaps shut, it's got teeth. And particularly wolves have been known to chew their legs off. So you follow the blood trail and then you'll see the wolf that died from blood loss. The pain is so excruciating. They have been outlawed in most countries. People still use them because they get away with it. Or they'll pay the warden $20. That's evil. It's evil in its highest state. Because there's a person who's greedy, who's looking to kill wildlife, and does so with a horrible, horrible method. And they take this step further and they involve somebody else. So they get away with it. And then they sell it to a dealer who buys pelts. Women who don't understand that this was a live creature. The karma for that is that when they go to hell, and I have insight that I've shared with you before, but I'll do it again. You will think that you have a physical body, but your skin will be stripped from you and it'll be stretched out to dry. And you will be watching this. And it'll happen over and over and over ad nauseum. For every animal that you trapped and every animal that you almost trapped, that maybe it lost its tail or maybe it lost part of its toes or whatever, but it got away. You still purposely injured that animal. That's evil. Harming other people. Child abuse is evil. Same thing, only won't be taken out of your body because that's not in the karma. You yourself will be abused the way you abuse children, for instance. Whether it was beating them, whether it was lying to them, whether it was depriving them of a healthy social life or some type of enrichment that they needed to move forward in their lives, or whether it was sexual abuse. All of that will happen to you, and it'll happen to you when you reincarnate. People say, well, that's just an innocent child. No, I'm sorry. In the last lifetime, I was an adult. In the last lifetime, it abused other children. The karma is playing out, but what do we do about it as people who understand things? Do we go along with the evil perpetuating itself on this planet? No, we want to get back to the original way this planet was planted in the solar system. You know, it's like planted and evolved with the gases and the fumes and all of the volcanic action, etc. This planet's not 5,000 years old, people. Diamonds are older than the planet. This planet is multi-millions of years old. Now they're discovering that's even older than 4.3 billion years. Billion. It doesn't matter exactly how old it is. What matters is what happens. And we want to get to the point where we eliminate the cycle of cruel behavior. So that in turn necessitates the person coming back here to satisfy that cruel behavior. We want to make it not just a low mid-range planet, which it used to be a mid-range planet, now it's gotten low mid-range. And we want to raise it to a higher level so that there's no more evil karma. Evil is conducted not by Lucifer. He is a guardian, not a guardian, he's an archangel, the bearer of light from the planet Venus, which is where his first base of operations happened to take place. But in this solar system, he has control of every planet that has physical beings in the reincarnative process. That's why I call him the obnoxious principle that you can't stand or that you think was awful. No, there are awful principles, okay? But most of the principals and most of the superintendents want to test the kids so they're prepared for the real world. Evil starts with cruelty, meanness. The kids in school who teased probably you, definitely me, still are teasing. They've discovered that most of the times the kids are abused at home. They're so frustrated because they can't punch daddy in the face or can't punch mommy in the face. So they turn around, go to school, and they punch somebody else in the face. When you catch that, and you have good counseling available, it helps the child see the cause and effect. And if they're basically good souls, just so confused and so angry at being abused, if we had a better child welfare system, they could be taken out of that environment instead of judges think, oh, they have to go home. That's the best thing. They just were finished being killed over the house. You don't want to send them back there because nothing has changed with the parents. Regardless if they say, oh, Your Honor, I'll be a wonderful parent. I don't understand the judicial system anymore. It used to make sense. It doesn't make sense anymore. Why was that little girl, Harmony? Why was she sent back to her drunken father with a rap sheet like this? Why hadn't social services intervened when they were supposed to? She just fell through the cracks and disappeared. I'd be shocked if she was still alive, but that's evil. Evil on the father's part, who had already admitted and been in jail for abusing her, and they released her back. That woman he's married to, she looks like a crazed person. We don't know that to be true unless you absolutely know her. But if you watch her eyes, there's something there going on that is not healthy. So then she goes back to Daddy-O, and they are now living out of the car, and they don't really want her there. So they make her disappear. That is evil. They've gone from bad drunks to evil. When you harm another, that is evil. Not protecting yourself, not in martial arts class. But when you go out of your way to harm somebody else, that is evil. And it builds and it builds. So who's in charge of that? Well, if you want to call it a satanic person, a satanic force, that's okay. Whatever you call it, just call it evil. But it is not an archangel. Now, in the show Lucifer, they get close to a truth, and they have a demon accompanying Lucifer on his debauchery, because he thinks that's what humans want. Wine, women, and song, as the Romans used to say. But he explains to somebody that demons don't have souls. And she also explains that to somebody, I think it's the therapist. I don't remember her name, but she's Linda in the program. And she's explaining it to Linda, the therapist, that she doesn't have, why are they all going to a therapist? That's part of the story, but it's really good. She's explaining that we don't have souls. So the therapist said, well, what happens when you die? She said, we're just gone. That is true about demons. So what is running them? Other demons who are top of the line, the ones that were in the beginning, the ones that have all the power. Because every time something cruel happens, they breathe it in. They gather it up for themselves, and it makes it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So what starts out as a little evil of cruelty, whether it's to humans or to animals or poisoning the earth. You may not know this if you haven't studied history, but out west, the white people, like the soldiers, if they knew there were Indians in the area and they got their supply of water, they would now poison the well. I don't remember what they used, probably arsenic. Well, nothing can survive that. So people would come along, the horses would come along, the dogs that followed them would come along, and everybody would be dead. So that came to be when they found you, you would be shot dead on the spot. I think that's fair. You have now ruined a precious water supply. Nobody should ever damage water. People down in Peru with that recent oil tragedy. Peru has very dangerous waters anyway. And the fact that this oil company just went in and sucked out what they could, and are denying they have any responsibility. That's evil. That is big time evil. That is so big time evil. It's almost unimaginable. They will be in hell for 35,000 years or more. Hell is arranged very similarly, but we're also dealing with production values in the show. And I'll get back to demons in a second. Years ago, when I had a rebirthing, it was with my second husband who was trained how to do them. And I also do not use hypnotism at all when I would do rebirthings and regressions. People would get up, go to the bathroom if they had to, or call the babysitter and say, stay longer, or blow their nose, or my cat would be sitting there and they'd say, hi, sweetie pie. So they were not hypnotized at all. And I was taken by angels, my guardian angels, and then another level of angels, to a very quiet, cloudy, but foggy place. And they told me that they are going to be teaching me about what happens to people who are cruel. You go through a tunnel and you come out at like, I don't know, a foyer area. And there are different doorways with different levels. Some is the worst, which is where Hitler is, for instance, Stalin, where Putin is going, where Mussolini went, Genghis Khan, all these people who think they have to conquer other countries and unite them under their power. Oh, Putin is scheduled for bad things. You know why? He wants these countries because, number one, it gives him more access to the ocean. And number two, it's the largest uranium deposits in the world discovered so far. And since people are now with new technology, he wants to control every single country's ability to gather uranium for the nuclear projects. So it would take divine intervention to keep him out. I don't know how it would be happening. So we're in the foyer and they show me, okay, a glimpse over here, a glimpse over there, a glimpse over here. And it gets progressively less intense and less punishing, but appropriate for the souls that are there. And so they take me to an area that they explain. Souls have sworn, have promised, have done everything they can to convince the guardians that look out for this area that they are ready to come back in a physical body and get another chance. They said, evaluate this yourself. And when I looked, it was a pit with all of these people looking up. Now, I knew instantly which ones were lying and which ones weren't. Number one, I'm a psychic and I know this. Number two, the look in their eyes, the look on their faces was not of innocence and of honesty and decency. It was a look of meanness, looking to overcome your foolishness for letting them out. And so they said, we are holding on to you. Reach out and touch whomever you think is appropriate to come back. I was shocked as I was reaching for person A that 10 other people would try to grab me and pull me in. But the angels prevented that from happening. And I got the person out who was appropriate to get out. And they said, try again. And I did again and again. I don't even remember how many times. But they pulled me back and they said, what do you think? I said, I think I got the right people. But I'm so sad because the rest of them are lying. They said, what do you mean? I said, they're not telling the truth. They're lying to angels. How is that possible? How could they be so egomaniacal and stupid? And they said, how could it be so evil? I said, but I thought they went through tests. And they said, but they were free to turn around and say, no, I'm not ready. And some of them did, because they're not quite ready yet. It's not deep in their soul yet. So they're feeding upon evil that is influencing them to try to trick us, to try to trick you, to try to trick others we've brought here before. And so they said that I did pick the right people, and they would be sent on to work with their guardian angels for their next steps. I was so overwhelmed with sadness that there were people who thought that they could fool the angels in charge of this area of retribution and punishment and forgiveness, it just affected me for days. When I came back out of it and came back out of the regression, which was immediately after that, my ex was standing there pale as a ghost. And he said, "I thought you died." I said, "Why?" He said, "If you could see yourself right now, your eyes are sunken in and you're whiter than white." I said, "Whiter than you?" And he said, "You were crying when you came back." So I told him why I was crying, what had happened, and he was just stupefied. Now, that is not an experience everyone's going to get. It takes a great deal of intelligence like that, and a great deal of personal strength and acumen, and I don't know what else. And I empathized with the angels that night in meditation. I said special prayers to God to give them an energy boost because it's so draining. I said, I know angels are self-renewing, that you send them energy constantly. It's like they're plugged in like a battery. I get it, but they need help. I don't know if they get a bouquet of roses or what you do, but they need help because evil is so extraordinarily deceitful and powerful. It will make any promises to anyone. And Lucifer in the show, remember True Blood when they were talking about they glamour someone, they glamour them to forget what they just saw? Well, he'll say, what is it you want the most? What is your deepest, darkest secret? And then they'll tell him and he'll say, okay. They'll say, what are you, crazy? That's it? There's a lot of humor in there. But while you're watching it, understand some of it is accurate. Just like the demons have no souls. They were not created by God. So they can't have a soul. They can have an existence. What's really incredible is that as the show progresses, everybody is going through a transformation. And even the archangels, Lucifer and his brother, who came here to save him, and the demon, who's called Maze, I don't remember her full name, but she has now come to value the people she's made as friends because she never had a friend. She never knew what that was like because she was so busy being evil. But the thing that broke her free was a little girl. And kindness from the little girl's mother and from the therapist. And honesty, not being lied to, not being manipulated. She made a major life decision. And it involves bringing her back to people who've accepted her and are bringing out the good qualities that she didn't even know existed in her. It's an example of every act of kindness that you do, every thought, every prayer, every kind, good thing that you do matters. Even though many of us, including me momentarily, think, God, have you forgotten this place? There's so much greed and evil going on this planet. How is it ever going to survive? With this recent nightmare in Peru, you're going to say, well, we're far away from Peru. Everything that happens on the planet affects you in some way. And what's off the coast of Peru? Oh, gee, I don't know. Thinking, well, the Galapagos and Antarctica. And it's summertime. That's breeding season for whales, dolphins, sea turtles. The oil washed up on the shore, covered millions of baby turtles that were going to hatch. Life in that part of the world is dead. The economy of Peru is gone. When I heard the first report, 32 beaches have been completely destroyed. And years ago, I had a client who, she and her husband were photographers, and they traveled all over. And they had been to Alaska after the Exxon Valdez. You know, that was in Mexico, the one in Alaska that destroyed the ocean. You can look down, they said, the thing that got them to go there was that they were on a cruise, and they looked down the ocean, and it was completely clear. And it wasn't supposed to be. And there were supposed to be plants and kelp and all kinds of things and crabs running around and all. It was nothing. So they hired a guide they knew from previous trips to Alaska, and he got them over to places where the oil had spilled the worst. And they just had a shovel and cameras. And they dug and they dug. Sometimes it was just 2 shovels full. Always on the 3rd shovel, they got the oil in the sand. And they moved the rocks that had been put on top of the rocks that were on the shore. And there was the oil. And she said, Linda, you could stand there, and if you carefully watch with the sun hitting it properly, you can see the oil seeping out into the water, into the shoreline, and then seeping out further. That area is dead. She said you could see birds flying over it. And the closer they got, then they take off. And a few songbirds that would land nearby would sit and hop around for a bit, look at each other, and then leave. She said nothing goes there because there's nothing to eat. It's not safe. So everything that happens, oh, by the way, the currents that go by Peru also go by the Antarctic. So this is spreading, not just across the Galapagos and Patagonia and all those areas, but to the Antarctic, which is supposed to be exposed when the Earth shifts again. Well, it'll be exposed as an oil dump. And that oil is going to carry all through the current area that goes up the Antarctic, goes up around the Pacific Islands. This is a tragedy of unexplained proportions. Same thing, by the way, in the Gulf of Mexico. They can see from satellite exactly where the oil has settled because there's no life there. Same thing with Alaska. Same thing off the coast of Japan. Remember Fukushima nuclear power plant with the tsunami and the earthquake, same thing that happened in Peru. They can see the Chernobyl disaster in Russia. They can see all over the planet where there've been unannounced oil spills. We're contaminating the earth that we need. We're killing the fish. Without a good, healthy marine life, there'll be no earth life because the water absorbs carbon dioxide and creates oxygen. There are plants in the ocean. And whatever corals were growing there are gone. And will continue to be gone. And this to me, I didn't hear the rest of the report, but this to me looked like the heavy oil, which you may not know is this light crude and this heavy crude. And this to me looked like the stuff from hell. So whatever you can personally do, whether it's recycling, whether it's saying prayers for the planet, whether it's teaching people to meditate, every prayer, every good thought matters. It neutralizes some equal level of negative energy, of evil energy. Every time you turn away from a lie, Trump and his whole crew are evil, in my opinion. They are evil. He went from a crook who had decent ideas about life to a completely evil individual. There's nothing good about it. There's nothing left. He's been so corrupted. If you have not seen the movie Picture of Dorian Gray, go to Netflix and find it. Or Turner Classic Movies. I think they have an additional program that you can check for movies that are not being aired at the moment, but that you can access. Picture of Dorian Gray. He made a deal with the devil. And he said, I want to stay looking young forever. And some artist had done a portrait of him. And when he went up to look at the portrait after he had done some horrible things, the portrait had a crooked smile and a crooked eye. And every evil thing that he did was on the portrait. And he would cover it because he didn't want anybody to walk in and see it. And he didn't want to see it. And towards the end of the movie, it's excellent. I won't give you the ending. See it yourself. It's Peter Lawford and I can't remember who else at the moment. Hurd Hatfield, who couldn't get a job again in Hollywood to save his life. I think Angela Lounsbury was the first one to hire him for Murder, She Wrote, because he was so identified with that part that it gave people the chills to look at him. How can they put him in a romance? How can they put him in another movie if everybody is focused on Picture of Dorian Gray, Picture of Dorian Gray? But his career was rescued by Angela Lounsbury and anybody else, because I saw him in other programs as well, even a few years ago before he crossed over. He was brought back on certain television shows. I think Law and Order was one of them. So it's not that the man himself did a bad thing, it's that he did such a good job in portraying evil. It comes to you in so many subtle ways. But if your gut says, oh no, I'm gonna think about this, it always tries to rush you. Goodness never tries to rush you, unless you're going to be in a place where you could save somebody else's life. Look at the people who pulled the woman out of the water. Look at the men who pulled the man out of the train. 2 seconds later, the train hit it. They think he had a heart attack and they pulled him out and they were all safe. They were supposed to be safe because they were stepping out of their, whatever they were doing, and they were put in this place at this particular time because they would be the ones who would be able to save this man. And instinctively they reacted. Boom, they pulled him out. Then the car got smashed to pieces, but the man was safe. Because those people did something good, something amazing. They were put there at the right place at the right time to do good. That is divine intervention. So it was his karma to have the heart attack, not on the train track. But what if this was a test for everyone? Everyone who would be available. Would they sit by and say, oh my, I can't go close, it's going to get hit? Or they instinctively all race out together and yank the guy out of the car? That happens at accident scenes all the time. It happens when buildings collapse. It happens when any kind of disaster occurs. Good people step forward. Every time that happens, it's like a burst of light. And that dims evil, pushes it away. Oh no, that amount of people, that amount of goodness, I don't know what to do with this. I gotta think about this in my little corner. So every time you do something kind, you see a bird who looks really hungry, throw out some seed. Don't throw bread. Birds are not made to digest bread. Don't give ducks bread. Gosh, I remember walking down at the end of the street to the lake with the swans and the ducks and giving them bread. And I said to my father one day, do they eat bread normally? Where do they get the bread from? He said, they don't eat bread. They eat fish. They eat the seaweed. wasn't called seaweed. He called it seaweed, but in the fresh water, it's not seaweed because obviously it's fresh. It's not seaweed. So I thought, well, how can we get food for them? He said, I don't know, I'll try that. They used to have, and then they still do in certain areas, pet supply for farm animal supply. And he went and got some pellets made for ducks and swans because there are people who have them on their estate. Swans, because they're very protective and they'll honk, 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 just like peacocks will scream when somebody or something comes on the property. They're very protective. They're used all over the place, in farms and estates all over the world. And so they created pellets that are good for them to eat. So we gave them one summer the pellets. And then he said, you know what, I think it's best to stop because they've got to learn to forage on for themselves. I said, you're right. So we stopped feeding them. And every now and then I'd put a little in my pocket, toss them to a duck that was off by its side, or a few pellets. The other little ducks would come racing in, but he'd get some pellets. So the little evil starts with somebody's rotten behavior, somebody's drunken behavior, somebody's stoned behavior, or if somebody is just so mean that everything they do has an angle to it that they think is to their advantage when they don't understand it's to their destruction. But that's how it starts, with little actions. It's also when parents hand a 10-year-old boy a rifle and teach the kid to kill an animal. Most of them are not up in Alaska, and frankly, they shouldn't be up in Alaska. The people who should be in Alaska are the natives who have lived there for thousands of years, not a couple of drunks. That's the place that has the highest rate of spouse abuse. Interestingly enough, but it's also one of the places that has the highest rate of alcohol abuse. It's not a place conducive to socializing, to having a normal life. We, as people from the lower states, are not acclimated to that kind of environment. So we should be where we belong and where our bodies are acclimated to and our minds are acclimated to, but continue to explore other environments. That every act of unkindness builds into little evil, and a little more little evil, and a little more little evil. The only way to combat it is with goodness and with prayer. I visualize the entire planet filled with light. Just like in a giant ball of brilliant white light, starting from the center of the planet, through the different layers of soil and debris and rocks, out into the sunshine, into the forests and the deserts and the swamps and the jungles, everywhere, to the cities, just brilliant, almost blinding, iridescent, opalescent white light, glowing above the planet. So it's a giant, 10 times bigger than it really is, beam of white light. That is a prayer to the universe. That is a connection to the fairies, the angels, the archangels, that you want the planet to be better, that you'll do your job in making things better and kinder. That's our job. If you're a good soul, it's your job to help create goodness. That's a test. It's a test to see if you're going to sit on your fanny and do nothing, or if you're going to take an active participation in making the world a better, safer place for all of us. Just remember, meditate every day, If you open up your hearts and minds to God's universal truth, you're going to know that God and the angels are always with you. Namaste. I'm Linda Bennett, Metaphysically Speaking.